Before we start the stories, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a nice comment that suits you. My name's Colin. I used to work the night shift in the Mill Creek Police Department. I wasn't supposed to work that Tuesday night, but Stevens, my buddy, had a family emergency. His daughter had a fever, so I told him I'd cover his shift. He owed me one, not because I hated working, but because of what I'd seen and heard, or maybe both. The night started quiet, as usual. The city was almost asleep by 10 p.m. I did my usual rounds, locked up the garage, and sat behind the desk. Around midnight, nothing was going on. The communication devices brought a face and a ready microwave meal, plus some instant coffee, one of those bad ones that leaves a warm, regretful taste. I was heating up the food when I noticed a flicker in the hallway lights, just one flash. At first, I didn't pay much attention. Old wiring and lazy electricians sometimes cause stuff like that. But the flicker happened again. It wasn't a full outage, just a quick flash that made the hairs on my arm stand up. I looked at the screens. Everything seemed normal except for the motion sensor light in the third cell. That light hadn't turned on in years. Let me explain. In our center, there are 3 cells. The first and second cells are sometimes used to hold smokers, and the troublemakers were there over some minor issues. But the third cell had a different story. Its door was solid and completely shut, with burn marks all over the walls. It looked like something had exploded inside. No one talks about it. I asked once when I first started working, but the boss gave me a weird look and said it's a storage room now, and no one goes near it unless absolutely necessary. I stood staring at the flickering light, and as I watched, the sensor light turned solid green, meaning something was moving inside the cell. I walked slowly down the hallway, forgetting about my food and still holding my coffee cup. The closer I got, the colder it felt. Not just a little cold, but real, intense cold, like standing in front of an open fridge. I could see my breath was getting heavier near the cell door. The green light was glowing steadily. I reached out to grab the radio and call the center, but before I could press the button, I heard 3 knocks on the other side of the door. They weren't quick or loud, just calm and deliberate, like someone was letting me know they were there. I froze, my hand trembling. Then I heard a voice say, "You forgot to lock it." It was quiet, deep, masculine, with no echo or distortion, like a whisper right behind the door. I slowly stepped back, my eyes fixed on the door. I didn't run. I don't know why. Maybe a part of me was too scared to turn my back. I went back to the control room and opened the camera feed. The hallway camera didn't. Something weird showed up as I backed away, terrified. Then I checked the third cell's camera. The screen was completely black. Not a malfunction, just total darkness. But the timer was still running, meaning the camera was still on. Suddenly something moved in the bottom corner, a shadowy figure crawling across the lens. Then the feed went all static. I yanked the plug from the wall, locked all the building's doors, turned off the lights, and sat behind my desk holding my gun. I'd been on the job for 6 years and never had to use my weapon on anyone. That night, though, it was loaded and ready. Exactly at 3:03 a.m., the lights flickered back on, and I heard slow, heavy footsteps coming closer. One after another, I didn't even know where it started, but it was getting closer. Not from the front entrance, but from inside the building, behind the cells. The security camera was down. I called the center again and told them we might be facing a break-in. The operator said backup would arrive in 40 minutes. The closest unit was at Weir Rest. I whispered, "Don't hang up." Then the footsteps suddenly stopped. I couldn't hear any breathing, nothing at all, but I knew something was there. I ran to the evidence room, locked the door with the only internal latch in the building, and sat in the corner with my knees up, my gun shaking in my hand. I stayed there for 3 hours. The silence was worse than any noise in that moment. I think I fainted from stress around 6:15 in the morning. The lights came back on at full strength. Looks like the power was restored and the screens lit up. I checked the hallway camera first. It was empty. Then the third cell's camera started working again. The door was closed, same burn marks, same welds. But this time, there were scratches on the wall next to it. 3 long, deep scratches carved into the concrete about 6 feet up. They were really long, like a human hand, but spaced apart like claws. It reminded me that whatever made them was still around. I slowly left the room, checked every corner of the facility. Everything was back to normal. I told the boss everything in the morning, didn't hide a thing. I listened without interrupting, then said it happened with Mirren once and he never talked about it again. He retired 6 months later. I didn't know how to respond. I went home and slept for 13 hours. I dreamed about that voice, those footsteps. I dreamed I was in the cell, and someone else was walking down the hallway carrying my badge. I worked 1 more week, then handed in my badge. I didn't make a fuss, didn't finish my last shift. I left the keys on the desk and walked out. Now I live in Verge, just 2 stops away, working private security at a shipping yard. The work's quiet. No cells, no sensors. My name's Mike Delaney. I've been in the police since I was 4. I'm a deputy in a small town. Nothing much. Barlow County is a quiet place where nothing big usually happens, and that's exactly why I chose it. The people here are simple, and problems are usually minor, like a call about a fight caused by alcohol or a bar brawl if the local football team loses a game. Stuff like that doesn't really bother you. But all that changed the night Nate Grieux called emergency services. It was a Thursday. I was halfway through my shift, thinking about dinner and wondering if the gas station coffee was worth a 4th cup. Suddenly, a call came over the radio. Disturbance at 1427 Dunlow Road. The caller was Nate Grieux. No details. Just a note that the call got cut off before anything else. I got some more info about the guy. I knew Knight. I'd been to his place before, once because of a lost dog, and another time when I was sure someone was stealing mail. He lived alone, kind of isolated, always listening to the radio but catching more static than actual signals. A bit weird, but not dangerous. Dunlow Road is one of those remote spots that just fade off the map. It starts with gravel, then dirt, then a barely there path. GPS dies halfway through. You learn to find your way by old fence posts. There's a rusty truck here, a spot there where if someone yells at night, no one would hear. I didn't think much about the call. Maybe it was just kids. They're messing around in the woods. Or maybe a wild cat scared his dog. I grabbed my coat, hopped in the patrol car, and headed over there with just the lights on, no siren. The closer I got, the weirder it felt. Not necessarily wrong, just unfamiliar. The road seemed narrower, and the trees looked like they were leaning more than I remembered. The car lights didn't reach far like usual, and the forest seemed to swallow the light. When I got to Knight's house, I noticed the silence. Not just quiet, but total silence. No bugs, no barking dogs, no wind. Even my footsteps on the gravel sounded muffled. The porch light was off, not surprising since Knight hates paying electric bills. But the house looked abandoned, like it had been empty for days, not just a few. I knocked on the door a few times and called out, but no answer. The door was open, so I easily pushed it open. Inside was clean, but empty. A coffee cup sat on the table, half a sandwich on the counter. A radio was humming softly. The sounds seemed muffled, like they were underwater. No night noises, no dogs, no signs of a struggle, nothing. I called the station as a routine check but only heard static. Then I noticed the back door was slightly open, not broken, just left ajar. Someone must have gone out and forgot to close it. I grabbed my flashlight and headed into the woods behind Knight's house. The forest stretches for miles, thick with pine trees. It's easy to get lost if you don't know the trails. In the dirt behind the porch, I saw bare footprints. More than one pair of adults, depending on size, headed toward the trees behind them. Not because I wanted to, but because it was my job. At first, it was normal. Branches breaking under my feet, my breath showing in the cold air. But after a while, things started to feel off. The trees seemed to be closing in, and the path kept changing just enough to confuse me. I walked maybe 100 or 200 yards until I reached an open area, a perfect circle with no plants, just dirt and a huge rock in the center, about 6 feet wide and 2 feet tall, smooth. Time felt heavy, but not in any human way. It didn't belong there. I knew that forest, and this place wasn't part of it. On some map, the rock didn't look natural. There were 7 people wearing hooded robes standing in a wide circle around the rock, completely still. They didn't move when I entered. I thought it was some weird ritual or a kid's prank. I called the Barlow County Police to come over. "Step away from the rock." No answer. Then one of them, maybe the tallest, slowly tilted his head. A second later, another did the same, then a third, until all 7 turned toward me in sync. One of them pressed a button. That's when I realized. They didn't have faces, no eyes, no mouths, just smooth, pale gray skin, almost like plastic under the flashlight's beam. I felt them staring at me. Not with eyes, but somehow still looking. They acted like they were reading my mind. My hand went to my gun without thinking. "Back off now." They didn't move. One of them started moving toward me, but he wasn't walking. He was floating, moving smoothly and silently, like it made perfect sense. The trees didn't move. The leaves didn't make a sound. He got closer like he wasn't bound by the laws of nature. I fired once, hitting his chest. No reaction. I fired again. Nothing. The third bullet got stuck. I tried to fix the gun, my hand shaking. Then I heard a voice in my head. "You shouldn't be here." It wasn't an outside voice, more like it was directly in my mind. My knees gave out, my vision blurred, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. Then I blacked out. When I woke up, I was lying on the porch, covered in wet leaves and cigarette ash. The cigarette was right where I left it, the engine was off, and the radio was silent. Night was gone, the dog was gone. I checked my gear, my body camera was on, the battery full, but the file was corrupted. The car camera had only captured one photo, a tall, distorted figure at the edge of the forest. At first glance, it looked human, but something was off. Its arms were way too long, and its head was narrow. Someone had drawn a person from memory, but messed up the details. I logged the report as unsubstantiated. What could I have done? No witnesses, no evidence, no body. Night Gerium was never found. Some say he got lost in the forest. Others blamed a bear they said they left behind, saying whatever they wanted. After 6 months, I moved to another center in the same state, but closer to the city. More traffic checks, less weird stuff. But there's still something. We keep getting calls from that area. People hear whispers in the trees, see lights sometimes children, sometimes adults. They know more. I don't answer those calls anymore. I let the newcomers deal with it. They think it's just some local ghost story and laugh about it at the station. But if you ever find yourself on Dunlow Road and your radio cuts out or you hear a sound that doesn't seem to come from outside, get in your car and don't look back. I'm Kevin. I used to be a sheriff in a small town called Merle Creek. It wasn't a big place, maybe 12 people on a good day. The town was quiet and my job was pretty simple. Usually I'd handle noise complaints, break up occasional bar fights, help seniors with their cell phones. I liked the routine and the calm. I thought quiet meant safe. But I later found out that quiet can hide a lot. It started slowly. Some folks came into the station saying their dogs had gone missing. Then some cats vanished too, mostly from houses near the woods. They said the gate had been left open, but I was sure I'd closed it before bed. or we'd find collars torn in half. You might think, he's a mountain lion, but no wounds, no blood, just disappearance. People whispered about wild wolves, and some blamed the teenagers. Reports were filed, usual advice given, and I didn't pay much attention. But things changed when the calls started. Mrs. Langley, a widow living alone, a strong woman, called one night after midnight. She said someone was standing in her field, watching the house. I asked if she saw their face, and she hesitated, saying it wasn't normal, very tall, standing still like he was waiting. I went over there but found nothing in the field. I searched the area, advised her to keep the lights on and doors locked, and thought it was just some tension at first. But in the following days, I got calls from different houses with the same story. Something's always watching the backyard late at night near the woods. Then people started disappearing. The first was Cody Hill, a 17-year-old football player. He vanished while coming back from practice. The last time anyone saw him, he was taking a path behind the library. He never made it home. No signs of a struggle. No phone calls. Nothing. The next day, his cousin and uncle disappeared while hunting. The only thing we found were their rifles leaned against a tree like they just set them down and walked off. People in town got really on edge. The fear was obvious. Fewer and fewer people went outside after that. At sunset, the balcony light stayed on all night, and parents started picking up their kids from school instead of letting them walk home. Then, one night, I got a call that still haunts me. It was from a woman living on Seymour Hill. I didn't know her well, but her voice was terrified, like she was trying to whisper and scream at the same time. She said there was someone in her yard. I asked if she could describe him. She hesitated for a long time, then said it wasn't a person, and the line went dead. I called Deputy Collins and asked him to check it out. He was a calm guy, a former soldier, not easily scared. If there was some crazy person sneaking around, I was sure he'd handle it. But he never called back, didn't respond on the radio, and never came back. I went out looking for him. Her front door was open, the lights were on, and the TV was making a constant noise. Her car was in the driveway. Inside the house, it looked like she had been packing her things. Drawers were open, clothes scattered on the floor, and her half-packed bag was in the hallway, but there was no sign of anyone. Then I saw Colin's hat carefully placed in the middle of the living room, with her badge underneath it. No blood, no signs of a struggle, just a sudden disappearance. A voice came from Sheriff's radio. It wasn't Colin's voice. It was slow, strange, like it was coming from underground, damp and mysterious. I left quickly without looking back. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at the station, locked the doors, kept my gun close, and sat down. I stayed at my desk until sunrise. It became a habit for a week. I rarely left the place. Every night around 3:30, I'd hear 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the back door. I'd check the cameras, nothing. I'd go out to check, no footprints, no wind, just complete silence. One night, I saw something through the peephole. It looked like me, or something trying to be me. Same clothes, same build, the same scar above my right eyebrow, but it was off, like a Halloween mask pulled tight. It smiled, raised its hand, waved, then walked away. In the morning, I found my official gun on my desk, clean, oiled, and loaded, even though I hadn't touched it in a while. Days passed with a small piece of paper underneath, with just one word written in rough handwriting. That was enough. I packed my bag and tried to leave town, but the police car wouldn't start, not even the backup truck. The power went out at the station. Radios and phones stopped working. The whole town was cut off from the world. I walked to the restaurant thinking I'd find someone there, but it was empty. Not just empty, abandoned. No tables, no chairs, no plates or menus, like it never existed. I kept walking from one house to another, all empty, silent, no signs of panic or broken windows, just nothing. The whole town disappeared, and I was left alone. The roads kept going every night, always. In the same way, I started hearing whispers sometimes inside the building, sometimes outside the walls. My name kept being repeated over and over. One night, I heard the front door open. No breaking in, no forced entry, just the creak of the hinge, then slow, steady footsteps coming down the hallway. I waited with my back to the file cabinets, gun in hand. The footsteps stopped at the corner. Then I heard a voice say, "You're the last one. You broke me." I ran out the back door through the woods without a flashlight, just moving, not stopping until I passed the Morrow District sign. The moment I crossed it, my phone vibrated. 5 missed calls, 3 voicemail messages. I felt the air change, real and different, like I'd just come up from being underwater. I already sent my resignation from the next town under a fake name. I didn't want any contact. Now I'm living in 2 distant counties, in a small apartment, with a regular job. I don't wear a uniform anymore, and I don't talk about Merrill Creek. Most people don't even know it ever existed.